Meanwhile, Hillary Clinton called for national unity during her concession speech yesterday and urged Americans to give Trump a chance to lead. Meanwhile, here's how Clinton's fellow Democrats are reacting. Senator Bernie Sanders said, quote, "To the degree that he pursues racist, sexist, xenophobic, and anti-environment policies, we will vigorously oppose him."
But others sounded a different note. House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi vowed to work with Trump on a new infrastructure jobs bill. And Senator Elizabeth Warren, one of Trump's harshest critics, said that they could put aside their differences and work together to rebuild the economy.
Our Nancy Cordes is in Washington. Nancy, good to see you. So we saw a number of statements from Democratic lawmakers yesterday with varying levels of graciousness and defiance. What sorts of things have you heard from Democrats on Capitol Hill over these last 24 hours?
Well, they're definitely still in the grief stage, Vlad. I don't believe that they've really moved on yet to trying to figure out how they are going to deal with a Trump presidency and deal with the fact that they no longer control either end of Pennsylvania Avenue. That is going to completely change their political calculus. But at the moment, they're still processing this loss because until 24 hours ago, they all believed that Hillary Clinton would be the next president. They were making a lot of plans that involved that scenario, and now they've got to switch gears. Some of them are still in disbelief, and I've heard them say things like, "I've just got to keep working so I don't think about it." And so, yes, you do have some of these leaders trying to set the tone. Folks like Chuck Schumer, who will be the most likely the new Democratic leader in the Senate. People like Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, who are trying to thread the needle between saying, we do want to have a constructive relationship with the next president, and yet we are going to try to put checks on him if he attempts to do some of the things that he described during the campaign that we see as bigoted, things like imposing a ban on Muslims entering the country. Then you'll see Democrats reacting very strongly with a unified voice.
Yeah, well, there's supposed to be 7 stages of grief, so this may take a while.
Right.
Nancy, you mentioned Chuck Schumer, though, and President-elect Donald Trump certainly reached out to Senator Chuck Schumer. Do you think the two have any common ground that they can maybe meet on and start something?
They do actually have a few areas of common ground. However, there are big problems in all of those areas. Take infrastructure, for example. Chuck Schumer would love a big infrastructure investment bill. He's been pushing for that for years, and that's something that Donald Trump says he wants too. The problem is Republicans in Congress don't. They are not interested in more government spending. So that seems like something that would be dead on arrival in a Republican-controlled Congress. Chinese currency manipulation. This has been a big issue for Chuck Schumer for years, and it's something that Donald Trump talked about on the campaign trail. But this is something that not all Democrats agree with Schumer on. So that's a problem. And then rethinking trade policies has always been something that Schumer has talked about. The problem there is that the way he'd like to rethink trade and what Donald Trump says about trade, which some Democrats have argued would start a trade war with other countries like China and Mexico, could mean that they'll have difficulty finding common ground on the way to rethink our trade policies.
Nancy, in talking to Democrats on the Hill and from your own observations regarding the party as it stands right now, I mean, a lot of people are starting to do an autopsy report, and they're sort of surprised by saying, A, we had 8 years to groom the next President Barack Obama, and we weren't able to do that. And right now, we don't really have a bench. So who is the face of the Democratic Party going forward?
That is an excellent question. And, that was a bit surprising from the start of this campaign that Democrats, the party of government, they've embraced government far more than Republicans, didn't have a number of people who wanted to run for president, who were ready to run for president. Now, part of that is that a lot of people, frankly, thought that it was Hillary Clinton's turn, didn't want to go up against the Clinton behemoth. So the question is, now that she is no longer a factor, frankly, what does that mean for ambitious Democrats who are sort of making their way up the ladder, who suddenly see that there's a bit of a power vacuum. What does this mean, for example, for the liberal wing of the party, like Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders? What about some of these up-and-coming Democrats, Kamala Harris coming in from California, or Chris Van Hollen coming into the Senate from Maryland? What do they try to do? What kind of name do they try to make for themselves? It will be very interesting to see. The challenge for them is that it's going to be very difficult for them to notch some accomplishments that they can point to, because they simply don't have any power. If they want to get anything done, they're going to have to work with Republicans, and it's difficult to see right now where they'll find that common ground when they haven't been able to find it in the past 4 to 8 years.
To be continued. Nancy Cordes in Washington for us. Thank you, Nancy.
You're welcome.